This is CJSW's Municipal election coverage, your audio guide to Calgary's 2025 election. This series gives you interviews with candidates running for office, exploring the people, policies, and issues that will shape Calgary's future. We're broadcasting from CJSW 90.9 FM, located at the University of Calgary, on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. Before we begin, we would like to remind listeners that the views expressed in this podcast are those of the candidates and the interview subjects, and not those of CJSW or its staff. Ward 4 is anchored by key institutions like the University of Calgary and the Foothills Medical Centre, playing a major role in the city's academic and healthcare landscapes. Today, we are diving into Calgary's North Central Ward that's community-oriented and just minutes from downtown. With a mix of homeowners and student renters, Ward 4 is concerned with redevelopment, density, and zoning. The communities included in Ward 4 are Beddington Heights, Brentwood, Cambrian Heights, Charleswood, Collingwood, Dalhousie, Edgemont, Greenview, Highland Park, Highwood, Huntington Hills, North Haven Upper, Queen's Park Village, Rosemont, Thorncliffe, and Winston Heights/Mountview. We went directly to citizens of Ward 4 to ask them what they're feeling this election season.
Oh, it's been fantastic. Yeah, I really like Thorncliffe. The little community that I'm in a townhouse complex, and my neighbors and I, we are tight. We are close. Like, they are my people. And I've been there for 16 years, and it's been fantastic. Yeah, I've got no complaints. I like the older areas too. I like the fact that I'm nice and close to Nose Hill, and I'm only 15 minutes away from downtown. Like, it really suits everything that I'm looking for sure. So I think, being so close to Nose Hill, being close to 14th Street, the only thing that would maybe benefit is a little bit more monitoring of people that are using it as a racetrack in the summertime. Because you always know when springtime comes and all of a sudden you hear all the bikes and they're having a drag race at 14th Street, to be totally honest. And that's just the nature of it. So, people that's what they like to do, right? So, but for sure, you hear of these people and you know that they are just going as hard as they can up the hill. And I'm like, you know what? There are still deer up there. There are porcupines. There are skunks. There are all kinds of things, not to mention the fact that it's a major pathway system too. So yeah, it's definitely a safety concern for sure.
Now that we've heard what's on the minds of Ward 4 residents, let's turn to the people hoping to represent them. We reached out to nominated candidates and trustees running in the 2025 general election to participate in this podcast. The following interviews feature only those candidates who responded and were available to participate within our production timeline. To ensure consistency, we selected about 1 minute of each candidate's response to include in this episode. The audio is presented unedited, and we've aimed to fairly represent each participant's message and voice. We remain committed to providing space for all voices and encourage voters to learn more about every candidate by visiting electionscalgary.ca. Veteran councillor Sean Chu has been representing Ward 4 since 2013. Chu was also voted as the deputy mayor for 2025, a role where he acts as a mayoral stand-in when the official mayor is unavailable. He will not be seeking re-election for council in the fall, and there are others hoping to take his place. Now, it's time to hear from the candidates themselves. We asked each of them the same set of questions to help you compare their priorities, values, and vision for Ward 4. On social services, what do you believe is the city's role in supporting vulnerable Calgarians through social services such as mental health support and harm reduction? From DJ Kelly, representing the Calgary Party.
Mental health and harm reduction are obviously both major issues that we're facing in the city, especially as you saw coming out of COVID. If you'd been downtown, the downtown had definitely become a place where when we didn't have regular everyday office workers in the downtown core, that we could see a lot more of the usually invisible became a lot more visible. City Hall definitely has a role to play in terms of finding locations and services for people who need to access mental health and addiction services. Health is a primary responsibility of the provincial government, so it definitely has to be a partnership between the two organizations. And I think that we've really done a disservice over the last few years in terms of our relationship with the provincial government. I think we need to get back to that, working with all of the different social service agencies in the city. I've spoken with lots of them. I have a background in the not-for-profit sector. They are doing their absolute best with the funding that they have, but we definitely are seeing an increase in the need for those services.
From independent candidate Sheldon Yakachuk.
The city on side of housing is, I think, our biggest concern, especially right now, affordability. And I'm just looking at a recent post yesterday, is that, housing has come down by 10%, that's rentals, but there is still a large demand for non-market housing, which is where we have our social assistance in. Inside of the mental health, is downtown Calgary is a bit of a war zone right now, and we have a number of different issues going on there. There's addiction, there's the mental health crisis, and then there's homelessness. And I think that a big part of cleaning up downtown Calgary to make it usable for the other 1.6 million Calgarians is that we do actually have a responsibility towards supporting services that will help bring back Calgary to a beautiful, vibrant place where people can feel safe and walk around.
On affordable housing, what specific policies or initiatives would you support to improve housing affordability and accessibility in Calgary? From DJ Kelly.
Let's be honest, when it comes right down to it, it's almost always money. That's the big thing that is really needed. That is not something that we have a whole lot of extra floating around in Calgary. That being said, there are definitely some things that we can do to make it easier on those organizations in order to be able to build affordable housing. One of the things definitely would come down to appropriate zoning, opportunities for them to find units in locations that are near transit, etc., in order to be able to have some slightly more effective units come on the market, because the demand with those organizations is through the roof right now. They have way more people who are applying to get into the programs that they have than they ever will have units for if we keep things on the track that they're currently on. So I definitely look forward to having more conversations with them about what exactly it is that we can do to support them in that process. But I know for a fact that there's definitely things that City Hall can do in order to be able to open up more CalA affordable housing units through those organizational partners.
From Sheldon Yakachuk.
Having worked with a couple of the builders, or chatted with a couple of the builders, one of the big things that's holding us back on affordable housing is bureaucracy, red tape, and getting shovels into the dirt. So in a meeting that I'd had with one of our mass market builders, he said, when he'd started in the industry, it was about 35 years ago, they'd buy a plot of land, call it $100,000, and they had shovels in the dirt within 2 years. He said now that can take 8 to 10 years. Well, when a developer has to sit on a chunk of property for that length of time, that mortgage is actually passed on to the buyers. And as we know, materials aren't going down in price, they're only going up. So, if they could have started building something 8 years ago instead of waiting till today, then one, they'd be looking at less mortgage that's on the actual property, two, more affordable labor rates, three, more affordable materials, which gives us more affordable housing.
On transportation, what is your vision for improving traffic flow and public transit in your ward and across the city? From DJ Kelly.
Where since COVID, we're starting to see a lot more people travel to downtown, and we are starting to see more people travel around the city as well. So we do need a council that is paying attention to transit funding and is funding Calgary Transit appropriately in order to be able to meet the needs of citizens. We can definitely see from the regular surveys that the mobility surveys that the city is doing that there is a significant demand for increased transit capacity and increased transit safety as well. we need a council that's actually paying attention to those things and working towards funding them appropriately, because we are going to be seeing more people move into communities like Ward 4. And if we don't start funding transit now, we're going to see a lot more in the way of parking problems, which is probably one of the number one complaints that we hear about in our neighborhoods. Funding Calgary Transit is a solution that to a lot of other problems that are not strictly mobility related.
From Sheldon Yakachuk.
So what our communities, the people that I've talked to that support bicycle lanes inside of our communities, want us to focus on is the routes that we would pick as a community instead of where the city would assign them. Let the community have their input, and Calgarians do feel like they just haven't had that in most recent years. And on public transport, there's always a focus on getting people, in, out of the core, or throughout the city. And a large part of that is through the LRT, and it's also through the city buses. So the city just, to make bus drivers more safe, have retrofitted or are in the process of retrofitting all the buses to the tune of $5 million of taxpayer money to put plexiglass shields in to protect the drivers. One of the problems with that is it only protects the drivers. Now, I'm not saying that the drivers don't have a right to be safe. Nobody should feel unsafe in their work environment. But at the same token, we really do have to focus on what's being transported, who's on our transportation, so that Calgarians that do pay for their transit, or for the Calgarians that pay their taxes into the transit system, know that we actually have a workable system that's not transporting crime or unsafe conditions throughout the city.
On public safety, how would you balance community safety with calls for accountability and reform in our police, fire, and emergency services? From DJ Kelly.
We are really lucky in the fact that Calgary already has a community policing model, but the influence of the United States in their paramilitary model is ever present. We see it all the time in terms of the trying to militarize our police. Calgary police are not that. Our downtown officers wear cowboy hats for a reason. We have a mounted unit for a reason. We have community liaisons for a reason. That's all part of the community policing model that we need to see more of. One of my favorite examples of this, as it directly relates to safety, is that Calgary police are frequently called out on what we might charitably refer to as welfare checks. Calgary police have recognized the fact that somebody showing up with a gun is frequently not the right person to be dealing with that circumstance. And so as a result, a great partnership like that they have with Alpha House, I think, is exactly the kinds of things that we want to be seeing more of on the policing side of things.
From Sheldon Yakachuk.
People aren't feeling safe inside of their communities. One of the other things is having met with the fire department, the chief, Steve Dongworth, and the Firefighters Association, is the developments that we're looking at through densification are unsafe. So we have a huge situation where we're creating unsafe conditions, but we're short on our fire staffing. And we have roadways that are clogged. We have places where they can't park, places that they can't access. We're developing places where there's only alley access. These are unsafe. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to bring our roles up to where they are acceptable. And as we're doing that, adapt it into what policies do we really want to support? What policies do we need to support harder? And, what are we going to need as a city looking forward instead of being reactive?
On environment, how would you approach environmental sustainability in Calgary, particularly around land development, waste management, and water conservation? From DJ Kelly.
I applaud Mayor Gondek for her thought around declaring a climate emergency. I happen to think that was a mistake, declaring it that way, because you're never going to, as I just said, it's far too large a problem for one municipality to solve on their own. And as a result, she put us into a circumstance where we have declared an emergency that we're never going to come out of. It's way too big for us to solve on our own. Instead, what I believe that the appropriate step is to take is to take these environmental steps in every single project that the City of Calgary does. What are the environmental impacts of every capital project or operating project that City Hall undertakes, and how can we move the needle against our climate goals?
From Sheldon Yakachuk.
I look at the city as, the people inside of my ward, people inside of Calgary, as the stewards of the city. This isn't something that we bought. This isn't something that we own. This is a torch that we're carrying for future generations. And I apply this to the same role that we play with our youth, our students, into the university, college years, but all the way up into our seniors' years, in that, we have the city that's been entrusted to us for our care and upkeep. And I don't think that we're doing a really great job of that. A lot of the homes that I go through, a lot of the communities, strewn garbage all over the place, unkempt city properties. And I just don't believe that that's reflective of what we consider as a world-class city. When we're looking at things, we have to look at these things with balance, but also through the lens of maintenance. So, each doing our part.
On education. While education is largely a provincial responsibility, how do you see the city collaborating with school boards to support accessible and quality education in your ward? From DJ Kelly.
Yeah, the interlock between housing and schools is significant. In most of the Ward 4 communities, we've seen our schools empty out over the past 50 years as kids move up, move on, and their parents become empty nesters. And so as a result, most of the neighborhoods in Ward 4 were built between the 1950s and the 1990s. And as a result, we have a fair number of seniors living in those houses, either alone or just with their partner. As a result, there's a lot less local kids going to every one of those schools. The majority of those students that are in those schools currently are bussed in. CB has, or Calgary Catholic, have managed to fill those schools up primarily through offering school choice programs. But they, CBE and Calgary Catholic and Alberta Education recognize the fact that no kid wants to be on a bus for an hour to and from school.
From Sheldon Yakachuk.
Well, in our wards, working with the school board trustees, I feel is going to be an essential role. I do know a couple of the people that are running for school board trustees, and, having granddaughters going to school in the elementary that my children went to, there are places of concern. The world is a changing place, but ultimately speaking, what we want to rely on the province for is making sure that we're keeping on the right paths and that we're not leaking outside of the bounds. So most recently, there's been a decision about certain literature that's being published or being allowed inside of public libraries or school libraries, and I'm supportive of removing such materials that may add sexualization to youths that, quite frankly, when I was growing up, weren't allowed.
On arts and culture. How will you support local arts and culture as a part of Calgary's identity? From DJ Kelly.
These are the kinds of things that people look for when they're trying to determine what city they want to live in. They are the kinds of things that make people want to stay in a place. They are the kinds of things that make people want to visit other cities in the world. They're the places that you go to when you think about where it is that you want to visit. Our entire tourism industry is based on Banff, the mountains, and our thriving arts and cultural scene, whether that be through nightclubs or whether that be through an art gallery. Without a thriving arts and culture scene, you do not have a livable city. No one will want to come there. No one will want to stay there. I believe that funding arts and culture at an appropriate level is what makes us competitive as a livable place in Canada and North America.
From Sheldon Yakachuk.
I think is truly symbolic of what a world-class city should look like. It shouldn't look like a parkade. it should look like we're upkeeping it. One of the other things, and I had a long conversation, probably longer than it had to be, with one of the people inside of my community, and we both love these things. You've driven around and you've seen the what are they, the power boxes or utility boxes that are present inside of communities. These things are being decorated up, and instead of, again, looking at just an electrical box, these things are being incorporated inside of our communities to help beautify our cities, to help beautify our communities. And I think they're incredible. And what do I want to do? I want to make sure that we're supporting these projects, but we're doing it responsibly, with the taxpayers in mind, where if we have priorities that need to be taken care of, we take care of those first. But then at the same time, not lose focus on, we are a world-class city, and we are the stewards of that city, and we have to maintain this for the generations that come ahead of us or come behind us.
On community, in what ways do you try to give back to your community? From DJ Kelly.
To me, this is what community is all about, right? Is that how can you actually connect things together? How can you bring people together to do things that neither one of them would have been able to do on their own? And yeah, like I said, if I really now do believe it, if you're not making the world a little bit better for other people, what are you doing? It's not that hard to give back. It can be as simple as volunteering at your kid's school. It can be as big as starting a not-for-profit organization, or anywhere in between.
From Sheldon Yakachuk.
We all do our parts inside of our community, and whether that is, like I said, shoveling sidewalks or volunteering to assist with neighbors in that, just being welcoming inside of our community, I think is a huge thing. Taking part inside of the community events, and admittedly, my wife used to work for our local community center. It's right across the street from us. And so we were a lot more involved when we had, our children going through the soccer program, going through Cub Scouts, being a part of the community. But since then, since our children have moved out, we've kind of fallen away from that. And one of the things that I've learned is that through our memberships for the community centers, and even certain other things inside of our communities, is that membership is down, still below pre-COVID stages. So part of my campaign right now is I'm working to reach out to people in the community to make sure that they're aware of the community centers, to make sure that, even if you're not going to use the community centers, it's $10 or $20 just to pay your dues, be a part of the community. And, if that just covers you on going to a Stampede breakfast, or, just on the awareness alone, or if it helps to support the programs inside of these places, I think it's partly our responsibility.
We note that Indigenous groups have their own bodies of governance, but as we are on shared land, we dedicated a question to decolonization. What is your understanding of Calgary's responsibilities under the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action? From DJ Kelly.
And so starting with the truth is obviously the most important part of that. And this is where I do think that the White Goose Flying Report at the City of Calgary is a fantastic tool for us to be able to build upon that knowledge in order to be able to take the actions that are required, because the Indigenous communities founded this place. The Northwest Mounted Police moved here because there were Indigenous communities here. We need to recognize that the truth that's there, and only that will set us up for the acts of reconciliation that all of us need to make, and specifically the City of Calgary through the actions from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that they have assigned to municipalities. I think we're on the right track, but it is something that requires constant vigilance and the City of Calgary to be a leader in.
From Sheldon Yakachuk.
Absolutely, they're entitled to their governance on their lands and with their people. But at the same time, do we let Edmonton make decisions for Red Deer? Do we let Red Deer make decisions for Calgary? And these are municipalities, and while I appreciate that, the different levels of governance inside of these places is much of the same token. Calgary is a municipality. We do pay our property taxes. We do pay our income taxes. We do support the treaties that have been in place for years now, decades. And I think that the first thing that we need to do is move towards more respecting those and keeping these bodies separate. The land acknowledgements, as I said, I believe that it's compelled speech. And inside of British Columbia, we see where that speech is led to. And I think that to make sure that the citizens of Calgary, the population of our city, feels safe is that we get this down ironclad that, yes, we do respect the rights of the land, but we do respect the rights of the landowners and the people that pay their taxes and the stewards of our city.
Finally, we gave each candidate a moment to share any closing remarks. From DJ Kelly.
I have nothing against all the great big projects that City Hall's been focused on over the last couple of years, but we have had a councillor who's not been focused on our ward for the last 12. And as a result of that, we do need to spend some time taking some of that money that we've missed out on, some of those improvements, those infrastructure improvements that we've missed out on over the last 4 to 12 years, and just fill some potholes in our neighborhood. I love the big picture things, but we do need to catch up in Ward 4 in a way that a lot of the other neighborhoods in the city don't need to the same level. And so as a result, I look forward to meeting with people and finding out exactly what those opportunities are, where they see those needs, and getting those things done so that we can once again turn our attention back to some of those bigger picture things. Every one of these things, whether it's filling a pothole, making a train run on time, or building a world-class arts and culture center, all of those things are what makes Calgary a livable place. And so as a result, I look forward to hopefully earning the trust of the Ward 4 voters in the next election and getting an opportunity to work with the other city councillors to make that happen.
From Sheldon Yakachuk.
I think the biggest thing that we're looking at into the up-and-coming campaign is how we're going to maintain our voices from our individual wards into City Hall. I think a lot of people are frustrated in that they don't feel like they're getting the recognition or their communities are being heard. And I think that that's reflected inside of the number of people that show up for polling. So the most important thing for me is that I have to encourage people get engaged, because things aren't permanent in place, and the more that we come together as communities, the more say that we're actually going to have. I think it was 46.4% of the eligible population that came out and voted. And so what I want to do is just make sure I take this time to make sure that people are engaged with the people that are running in their community, paying attention to streams like yours, looking up their candidates inside of their wards, and seeing if they have the opportunity to meet with them. Take that time. If you can just do some research online with them, take that time. And then the biggest thing is make sure you get out and vote, because we are all responsible for what happens with this city moving forward.
That wraps up our conversations with your ward candidates. We hope their insights help you feel more informed heading into the 2025 general election. Now, we're shifting our focus to another important group of elected officials, school board trustees. Trustees play a critical role in shaping the direction of public education. They're responsible for setting priorities, approving budgets, and making decisions that impact students, families, and communities across their school jurisdictions. While their work often happens behind the scenes, it has a direct effect on the quality of education in Calgary. Just like councillors, trustees are elected during the municipal election. To find out which board you vote for, whether it's the Calgary Board of Education, Calgary Catholic School District, or another publicly funded board, you can visit electionscalgary.ca and use the Where Do I Vote tool. We reached out to all nominated trustee candidates running in this ward, inviting them to participate in this podcast. The interviews you're about to hear include only those candidates who responded and were available within our production timeline. To keep things fair and concise, we've selected about 1 minute from each candidate's response. The audio is presented unedited, and we've done our best to ensure every participant's voice is clearly and accurately represented. Let's now hear from the trustee candidates running in this ward. What are your top 3 priorities for Calgary schools, and how do you plan to address them during your term? Running in Calgary's Catholic School District for Wards 4 and 7, Dan Penna.
First priority is authentic faith formation. That means instead of all too often in classes, in schools, faith is the last priority. It's nominally the first, but it's the last. So I want to hire teachers who are dedicated to teaching the faith, who know the faith, who practice the faith, who love Christ. So that's number one. Number two is parental rights. That means that when a parent sends their child to a Catholic school, they need to get the Catholic truth, nothing else. And that's respecting parental rights. And the third thing is we need what everybody needs. We need the right kind of leadership, and that starts with being honest and open.
How will you ensure equitable access to quality education for students across all communities, including those from marginalized or underserved backgrounds? From Dan Penna.
So we've always been completely inclusive. We've always wanted to invite everyone to join our church. And our schools have always been open to everyone. Now, having said that, I don't want to dodge any questions or any thoughts about it. That doesn't mean we're open to all ideas. We're there to teach our faith. We're open to students asking us questions, giving us their opinions, but we can't really change the words of Christ. We look to Christ and the church and the saints for models of how to behave. They loved and served everyone. Sometimes they would go to a leprosy colony and they would die of leprosy. Mother Teresa, people know her. She didn't demand that people change their religious obligations. She was there to love and to serve them. And her witness to Christ was love and service. So we're open. We want everyone to come, but we're going to teach what we think is best for humanity, which is what Jesus taught us.
How will you engage with parents, teachers, and students, and the broader community to ensure transparency and responsiveness in decision-making? From Dan Penna.
The first thing we always look to when we're making decisions is Christ. And the second thing we look to is his church, because the church is the expression of his desire for us. So we're always going back to our faith. But we also want to engage people in their schools. So what I mentioned before is we need to broadcast our meetings. We need to move our meetings from the afternoon when working people can't go to the evening so that people can come. We need to invite more people to know what we're doing, and that's on us. We need to make sure our links and our information is in every church bulletin or every church website. We need to actually go to parent councils. We need to make that's our job to create those bridges because they haven't been there. So we need to take the initiative. People don't know what they don't know. And so that's on us, and that's what we can do.
What is your position on the role of schools in addressing issues such as mental health, inclusion, and anti-racism? How would you support initiatives in these areas? From Dan Penna.
If we have a crisis in a school and we call in the mental health professionals, to me that doesn't make sense. We should be calling in the priests and the nuns and the religious and the parents, because we know that our faith works. Like when we call on the Holy Spirit, when we call on Jesus, they're there to help us. And we need to model that for people and not look to a mental health profession that by and large is becoming more and more biologically deterministic. So they're telling kids that, it's your brains, but it's our souls and our wills and our mind that also can guide us. So I'm not a big fan of increasing the presence of mental health in the schools. I'm a big fan of increasing the presence of clergy and religious and Jesus in the schools. We need more faith, and then we'll need less mental health. We'll have less mental health problems, and we'll need less mental health supports.
With ongoing concerns about education funding and class sizes in Alberta, how will you advocate for the resources schools need while working within budget constraints? From Dan Penna.
The Calgary Catholic School Board has been underfunded compared to other school boards in the province. And For example, the Edmonton School Board gets more money per student than we do. That's a long-standing issue, and it speaks to a long-standing problem, which is the Board of Trustees needs to be a strong advocate. It needs to create proper relationships with other levels of government. The municipal government funds us. So we need to work with them, and they need to be clear about what our needs are, and they also need to know that we spend the money well. And we also need to find ways for the community to support us. And the community will support us more with their time and their money and their donations if we clearly express to them the needs that we have. And we're not doing a good job of doing that. We're also content to have portables. And we need to make more of an effort to actually build the buildings to last. In the long run, you save money doing that. So there's all manner of ways in which we can do that, in which we can save money, spend it well, and that will encourage the provincial government to fund us better, because better funding is a good thing.
Is there anything else you want people to know? From Dan Penna.
Trustees need to see themselves as humble servants of the community, and that means that we need to be witnesses to Christ. So serving as a trustee member gives us a responsibility to deepen our faith, so that we're not complete hypocrites when we talk about Christ and relationship to Him, because it's only through our being honest and humble that we can be public Christians, and we need to do that. That's our number one job. Okay, I'm a teacher and I don't know much about Catholic faith. What can we do? We can give you a unit of study in every subject that we develop, and that it's a model unit of study, and it uses Catholic resources, Catholic books, Catholic history.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of CJSW's Municipal Election Coverage. I hope today's conversation brought you a little closer to your community and the people who want to lead it. I'm your host, Emma, and all of the source material for this episode can be found in the episode description. Remember to visit electionscalgary.ca for more information on every candidate and to check your voter registration. Again, we would like to remind listeners that the views expressed in this podcast are those of the candidates and the interview subjects, and not those of CJSW or its staff. Make sure to visit cjsw.com or the CJSW app to check out our voter education episode and our exclusive mayoral debate. Until then, take care, and please vote, follow, and share.